Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely unbelievable true story of survival. We're going to unpack the remarkable psychological and organizational strategies of a microsociety forced to survive on a completely unmapped island. Now, this isn't just your standard tale of castaways. It's a profound, real-world look at how humans build systems, manage severely scarce resources, and organize themselves when absolutely everything they know is suddenly stripped away. So, picture this. How do 134 complete strangers organize themselves to survive for 9 whole years on a vanished island? Because really, this isn't just a story about a plane crash in the ocean. It's an absolute masterclass in human endurance, resource management, and team organization. Imagine being entirely cut off from the world. No map, no rescue in sight, just you and 100 terrified strangers. How do you stop the panic and actually start building a functioning society? Well, let's find out. 134. That is the staggering number of people, 125 passengers and 9 crew members who were aboard the Douglas DC-3, flight NC-1602, when it vanished into a terrifying Bermuda Triangle storm on the night of December 27, 1948. Their instruments failed, they were tossed around like a toy, and everyone braced for the end. But in this crazy miracle, the plane crashed right into the canopy of a giant, ancient tree on an uncharted island. Its massive branches acted like a giant safety net, literally catching the fuselage and saving the lives of all 134 people on board. Okay, so surviving the impact, that was really just step one. The absolutely crucial factor in this initial phase was how quickly leadership emerged from utter chaos. Within moments, you had military precision replacing panic. Retired Army Dr. Evelyn Reed didn't even hesitate. She instantly set up a triage station for the 10 severely injured passengers. At the exact same time, Captain Robert Miller recognized that without water and shelter, they wouldn't last the week. He immediately divided everyone into highly focused teams. One team scavenged the wreckage for usable supplies, while another started building temporary shelters out of plane seats, metal sheets, and giant leaves before the sun went down. But day 2 hits, and reality sets in hard. A middle-aged man died in terrible agony after eating a poisonous wild fruit. They quickly realized they couldn't just eat whatever they found, and they desperately needed fire, both to cook and to fend off predators at night. And this is where human ingenuity really shines. A teenager basically went full MacGyver. Using sheer science, he took the lenses right out of his spectacles, focused the sun's rays onto a pile of dry leaves, and literally sparked life into their camp. Just like that, they had fire. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating from an organizational standpoint. To prevent an immediate societal collapse, Captain Miller completely systematized their survival. He turned a panicked mob into a highly functional society where everyone had a distinct role. You had a foraging team, guided by a passenger who actually happened to be a trained hunter, tasked with finding safe food. Miller himself oversaw the shelter and infrastructure, while Dr. Reed managed the makeshift hospital wing. This strict division of labor, it was their absolute lifeline. And instead of just sitting in the sand waiting for a rescue that wasn't coming, they mastered their environment through pure ingenuity. They actually took plain metal and island stones and forged real tools and spears, which was crucial, by the way, because the island was full of aggressive wild boars that would attack their camp at night. By learning to hunt them, they secured a vital protein source. They also organized the construction of this massive help sign out of coconut trunks. And over the next couple of years, they even figured out small-scale farming and improvised fishing techniques. They were managing their resources like absolute pros. But here is the wild part. While they were fighting for every single day on that island, the rest of the world was giving up. Completely unbeknownst to our survivors, after 6 months of fruitless searching, the U.S. government officially called off the largest search operation in history. They had spent $45 million scouring the Atlantic. Families were told their loved ones were dead. Flight NC-16002 was officially considered a ghost flight. Back on the island, that harsh reality of constrained resources was seriously taking its toll. Their population dropped from 134 down to 114. Disease and despair claimed several lives, and early on, 5 youths, just unable to handle the psychological pressure, stole a small raft made of wreckage and vanished into the ocean. They were never seen again. Yet, despite this agonizing loss, the remaining 114 banded together. They supported each other, even celebrating the birth of a healthy baby boy, which became this massive beacon of hope for their little micro-society. Heading into year 2, all that resilience fueled their most ambitious resource project yet. An engineer named Arthur Vance organized the construction of a massive rescue boat using wood, vines, and plane parts. It was a huge logistical gamble with their limited resources. Once it was finished, 25 of their strongest survivors set sail to find help. But, the ocean is completely unforgiving. A sudden, violent storm capsized the vessel. Only a handful managed to swim back to the island. 16 people drowned. This disaster was a massive breaking point. It slashed their numbers down to 98. But honestly, more than the physical loss, it effectively shattered the community's collective spirit. The psychological state of the whole group fundamentally altered right here. That belief that they could engineer their own rescue, it was just broken into a million pieces. By year 5, things get incredibly tense. The sheer stress of dwindling resources, fruit trees going barren, small game becoming scarce, caused the society to fracture completely. They split into 2 very distinct ideological camps regarding their ultimate survival strategy. Captain Miller's faction still believed in high-risk, high-reward escape attempts. Conversely, you had the Despair faction. They argued that trying to escape only brought death. They wanted to accept the island as their permanent home, abandon the outside world, and focus strictly on safe, day-to-day resource management. And as if that tension wasn't bad enough, it worsened significantly due to a terrifying discovery. A foraging team exploring deep inland stumbled upon some ancient, crumbling ruins. And inside a nearby cave, a human skeleton. But what really made their blood run cold was that the skeleton was clutching a rusted piece of aircraft metal. It was undeniable proof they weren't the first to crash here. Talk about fuel for the fire, right? It sparked widespread panic that the island was cursed, a Bermuda Triangle trap that nobody ever leaves alive. This really marked the absolute darkest phase of their ordeal. By year 7, stress, illness, and severe food shortages dropped their numbers down to just 82. Then, nature just started throwing everything it had at them. A massive cyclone ripped through the island, destroying their carefully managed farms and shelters in a matter of hours. And just as they were trying to rebuild from that, a devastating earthquake struck, tearing the ground apart and uprooting trees. They were pushed to the absolute brink of total collapse. But in this insane twist of fate, that catastrophic earthquake actually became the mechanical catalyst for their salvation. The violent shaking shifted the original plane wreckage that had been stuck there for years, exposing some hidden wires and the old radio equipment. A few days later, engineer Arthur Vance was inspecting it. Incredibly, at that exact moment, a rare solar flare hit Earth's magnetic field. Vance pressed a switch and heard static. With shaking hands, he reconnected the exposed wires, and for the first time in 9 years, the radio's green light flickered to life. Can you even imagine being the air traffic controller in Miami when this came through? Hearing this desperate, crackling message from a ghost flight that had been written off nearly a decade ago? Total goosebumps. When Arthur Vance provided the registration number and the captain's name, the entire control room went dead silent. The impossible had actually happened. The U.S. government immediately launched a targeted rescue operation, frantically scouring the islands in the Bermuda Triangle region. So back on the island, the survivors kept a massive signal fire burning day and night. And finally, they saw it. A U.S. Navy ship right there on the horizon. 82. That is the final number of incredibly tough, resilient individuals who survived 9 years of pure hell. When rescue teams landed, they were totally stunned. They didn't just find a few starving castaways, they found a living, breathing community. The survivors wept as they ran across the beach, just a massive testament to an unimaginable will to live. This whole ordeal sent shockwaves around the globe. Their unbelievable organizational systems, their ability to manage scarce resources, and their iron will were later immortalized in James Baldwin's best-selling 1958 book, Lost in the Echo. That book really ensured that the hard-won lessons they learned about leadership, division of labor, and community endurance would never, ever be forgotten. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. The survivors of Flight NC-1602 didn't survive just by sheer luck. They survived by purposely building a structured society out of the ashes of a disaster. It all came down to rigorous organization, extreme resourcefulness, and massive teamwork. So ask yourself this. If everything you knew was stripped away tomorrow, what kind of society would you build to survive? Thanks for exploring this incredible journey with me, and keep questioning the limits of what's possible.